The interesting part, and I think what this speaks to is how me personally, how I think the college football programs are almost moving more towards an NFL model with having, the directors of player personnel and building up almost like a front office. I mean, it 5-10 years ago, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't feel like there was a focus on that as far as having those type of administrative positions in college. And I think with NIL and the types of the transfer portal, just with things being open and the fluidity that there didn't used to be, I think this is what that move to me speaks to. But I think it's good to bring someone in. He's a Michigan player. He was a great while he was here. And I think someone who has NFL experience, who can speak to, incoming players or current players of how that business is, because it's one thing to think that and it's another thing to talk to someone who's been through it before. I'm sure Denard has had difficult conversations where a GM or assistant GM or whatever the case may be, head coach, has to bring him into his office and say that, you're cut. Sorry, you didn't make the roster. So those are the types of things that he can speak to current players to understand and get a better grasp of it, and understand that it is a business. It's not, yes, these coaches are going to do their best to build a relationship with you, but understand it first and foremost, this is a business. So the coach that you think likes you and loves you and all that is the same coach who's got to make that decision on, we're only keeping 4 running backs. Unfortunately, you're number 5. And, I think it'll be a really good person, a good resource to have just around the players, around the program, that guys can just come to him and say, hey, what was it like? And, so I think it's a good move. And like I said, I think it speaks to just kind of that move and that transition to a lot of these higher level, the elite programs are moving more towards an NFL model. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 years if we see, potentially a GM hired for, one of these, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, to where it's, you're almost essentially going to need that, because once guys hit the transfer portal, you're going to have that conversation with a head coach saying, hey, what are you looking for? All right, we'll get you a list of these guys are in the portal. We think they fit our model. And, head coach can kind of make decisions or divvy that up to position coaches as they see fit. So I definitely think that's the transition and the move that we're seeing these college programs move towards.
Yeah, in so many ways, it's becoming an NFL model, as you just mentioned. And with the NIL situation, the only thing that a college football staff does not have to deal with right now, they have to deal with so many other things that an NFL staff does not have to deal with keeping players eligible, making sure that they're passing grades and that they're staying eligible, and so many other things. But in addition to that, they don't have to deal with a salary cap. Now, we'll see what restrictions and limitations come into play once somebody gets a hold of NIL and whenever that happens and deals with that. But yeah, the transfer portal being like free agency, and even more difficult to deal with than free agency, because anybody can be a free agent at any time, and it goes on endlessly throughout the year, that you would think that, that there are going to be more off the field personnel needed to manage a college football program with the transfer portal and with NIL.
It's something, and I think of even that benefit too is, for instance, like Michigan. Let's say I'm a highly recruited senior or junior, right? Having a relationship not only with my position coach, with the head coach Jim Harbaugh, but also now another person like a Denard Robinson. I now have a relationship with all 3 of them, so that if, let's say, I decide to go to Oregon, and after that I want to transfer and potentially I'm in the transfer portal. Well, Denard Robinson is another person who can reach out to me as someone in the transfer portal. And let's say Michigan is, going through a bowl game prep or a college football playoff prep, to where Jim Harbaugh doesn't have a ton of time to dedicate that to talking to, a kid who's in the transfer portal. Well, now you've got a director of or assistant director of player personnel who can make those phone calls and figure out what it is that this transfer wants. What things are you looking for? We had a good relationship. You came to visit, so on and so forth. What do you need to see from us in order to make a commitment? So I think it's just having another resource. It's having someone else who can dedicate time, and I think the key in his role being it's an off the field role. So he's not going to be coaching, and he's not going to be going through the type of preparation that a Jim Harbaugh and a position coach is going to be doing. It's something where he may have more time, especially during the season, to be able to dedicate to kids in the transfer portal and being able to bring those kids on campus. So it's I think it's a good move, and I think like I said, it'll be good to have another resource there on campus that'll be able to help with the recruiting efforts, because like you said, it's free agency. I don't know how many kids are in the transfer portal right now, but it's probably still a ton. And we also have the wave coming up of after spring ball, because that's going to be another, I would think, mass exodus of kids on scholarships jumping in the transfer portal, right? It's going to be clear going into the summer, well, I'm not going to be the number one quarterback. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to go somewhere else and see if I can play. And we're looking at another uptick coming up in the next, spring ball is usually done around March, April, if I'm not mistaken. So late April.
Yeah.
So you're looking at another pretty big recruiting cycle. We can call it, coming up pretty soon. So this is a good time to load up your front office.